Hi friends, welcome to WebChamp. In this video, I'm going to give the introduction about Python. Okay, so as we know, it is a programming language, and even this is a very famous programming language in the market, which can be used with a variety of applications. But what kind of applications where we can use the Python, how to install, how to start the Python programming, that kind of things I'm going to discuss here in this video. Even I will discuss how to learn the programming at the end of this video. Let's see what is the Python. Okay, so it is high level, interpreted, and versatile programming language. So you will see different types of definitions on the internet for the Python. But it is a programming language that is very much used, or most popular programming language in the market. Okay. So let's understand why this language is useful and what is mean by the characteristics of this programming language. So it can be said it is a high level programming language. Obviously, why we needed this programming? Obviously, whenever you are working with any of the organization, obviously this language is getting used to handle the data. Okay, handle the data. And obviously, whenever you are dealing with the data is going to consume the memory. That data is going to consume the memory of your computer. Okay. And obviously, to manage the memory in computer while working with the programming, you need to have the knowledge about low code programming. Low code, and you must be familiar with the computer, even hardwares and memory management. Low code programming. Okay, so low code programming is nothing but the programming which is in the favor of machine, meaning the computer, the language which computer can understand. It can be in like binary code. Okay, but the problem is that humans are not able to understand the low code programming. All right, it is difficult to understand. It's not like that not able to, but yes, it is difficult to understand. Okay, and we understand English. So what they have they have added uh, one middle engine, we can say, one setup or one interpreter, and sometime it can be say like that, the compiler. Okay, that is one of the engine. Whatever the code we will write in English, okay, we will write in English. So that code will be understood by the interpreter, and that interpreter is going to translate your code into the low code programming. That code, meaning the code uh, which can be executed on the machines. Okay, like this we can say. So here the language which we understand is high level. That is not only the reason, okay, it says high level, but it is also able to manage the memory of memory during program execution. Okay, so why it is called high level? Because Python is able to manage the memory, and even we can write the code in English, and Python will convert that code into the machine understandable code. That's why we say this language as an high level programming language. We need not to worry about the memory management. We need not to worried about the hardwares of computer. So everything is abstracted. Okay, you have to write the code. You have to focus more on your problem solving code. So we need not to worry about the low level coding. That is for the machine understanding, the computer understanding. We need not to worry. So that's why we say this is high level programming language. Then it is interpreted language. Like other programming language, you do not need to compile the code first, compile code and then run. Like this, we don't have to do. Okay. If you are familiar with the Java or .NET, then there you need to compile the code first and then you need to execute it. But in case of Python, there is something called Python virtual machine PVM, which will compile your code and execute at the same time. So that's why we say this is an interpreted language. Okay. So it will be very easy to execute the Python code as compared to other programming language. Then let's say readability. What is mean by readability? So in case of Python, it uses indentation. Indentation meaning the space. Okay, the space, either single space or it can be a 2-3 spaces, or it can be a space of one tab. Okay, whatever will be there. But to organize the code in Python, we use indentation. We use indentation, meaning the space. If you want to create the block scope, we use indentation, space only. Here we are not going to use the semicolons and brackets, curly brackets and all like other programming language. It is very clean and readable syntax of Python. That's why it is more famous. Then versatile, it has wide range of applications. It can be used for the web development, for the data analysis, for the, let's say, machine learning, even for the automation, scripting, and there are many applications where this language is useful. So it can be said as a versatile programming language. Cross-platform. So it's not like that, okay, if you write the code on Windows, you will be able to execute that code on Linux also with little bit modifications, not the complete. Okay, so we can say that this is a platform independent. Okay, there are some programming languages are there in market. If you write that programming language on that specific system, so that will be executed on that type of operating system only. So that's why we can say that it is a platform independent or cross platform. Okay, this is one of the another characteristics of Python. Then open source. Obviously, you do not need to pay anything. It is a free of cost. Anyone can download and use this language. Then let's say dynamic typing. Okay, like other programming languages. Whenever you create or whenever you are dealing with the data, obviously we need to create the variables. If you are new to programming language, then it is fine. Okay, but if you are familiar with the any other type of programming language, you will understood here. So what is mean by dynamic? So in other programming language, okay, if you are storing the data into the variable called x, so before declaring the variables, what we need to do is we need to specify the data type of that variable. What type of data that variable is going to hold, you need to specify in other programming languages. But in case of Python, you do not need to worry about this also. This is dynamically typed language. Okay. So at the runtime only, Python will be able to resolve this, what type of data is stored in the variable. So this makes even more simple as compared to other programming language. So that's why people say that Python is even more simple to work. Then multi-paradigm. So there are programming structures defined like functional programming, object-oriented programming, procedural programming. Okay, these are the programming styles, I can say. Okay, paradigm, multi-paradigm. So Python supports these kinds of programming, these types of programming. That's why even this is most of the famous language, one of the famous language to use with the wide variety of or wide range of applications. Okay, so now how Python code execution works. Okay, so let's say you have one file, that is Python file, and you have written the code. So if I say x is equal to 10, okay, like this, we have simply written the code. Fine. So what is going to happen now? So this code will be treated as an source code. This is what the first thing. And if you start the execution, there is something called, whenever you install the Python on your system, the compiler and PVM, everything will be bunched in that installation, and it will, whenever you try to execute any code, so compiler will comes in a picture. It will read or it will execute the code, that what is the code you have, but it is not going to do the directly, meaning that it is not going to show the output. Okay, there is something called middle language or intermediate language. So it will convert your code, as I said, whatever the code you have written in the English, okay, in high level programming language. Obviously computer is not able to understand what you have written. So that compiler will convert your code into the byte code, the code which is machine understandable. Your laptop, your computer can understand what kind of code. So that kind of code will be generated by the compiler. Okay, and this is not going to save this code. Obviously compiler is there. It's not like that programming is, I mean, in case of Python, compilation is not happening, but we are not saving. We do not need to do the separate compilation. Okay, everything will be taken at the execution. Okay, so once the code will be compiled, that code will be saved virtually in .pyc file, .pyc file. Okay, then let's say once this code get saved, okay, so PYC stands for Python, or like compiled Python files. Okay, this is what the extension of that file, but we will not be able to see any kind of this file on your system. Because what? Because everything is happening in the Python virtual machine. Machine is nothing but one of the system. Okay, and that code will be executed and you will see the output. Okay, you will see the output on your screen, meaning after the execution of that byte code, Python will returns you output on console. On console, whenever you wanted to see the output, or in the terms of anything. So this is how Python programming is going to work, or Python execution is going to work. First, it will compile, it will save into the intermediate code or intermediate language, that is what byte code. Byte code will be executed by the PVM, Python virtual machine, to give you the output. This is the process of Python code execution. And now, once you get familiar with this, obviously it's time to go and install the Python. So what do you need to do to install the Python? You don't need to do much. You just have to go to the Google and search download Python. Here you will see the download Python link. Just go here and there is something called a download Python version. So you will be able to download the Python from this link. If you click on this button, it will download the Python. Okay. So if I click on this, it is just of 24 or 25 MB. Let's wait to finish the download. Once this will get downloaded, okay. So you will see this kind of file in your download folder. So this is your Python application file. So you need to install this. How to install this? Just double click on it. It will start the installation. Okay. Before click on install now, you need to select this, add python.exe to path. This will add your system, meaning add the Python path into your environment variable of system, so that you will be able to use your Python from anywhere. Okay. So then you have to say installation. Automatically it will install pip and everything. Now pip is configured in this setup, so you need not to go anywhere to run this file. So you will be able to, even if you want to uh, install the libraries of Python, okay, or Python packages. Earlier we need to install these pip. There is something called pip installer. Okay, you have to use that command to install the packages, so that we need to install separately. But now it's not necessary, it is configured, so everything will be ready here in the Python. Okay, once you are done with this, what you need to do, you need to go to these windows and let's say terminal, okay, or command prompt, whatever you can say, you can open. Okay, just to see, okay, whether your Python installation is successful or not. Just type the Python and hit the enter button. It is showing this kind of version. Okay, this is showing me Python 3.10.4. This was all earlier installed on my system. So now I have installed 3.11.5. Okay, that is fine, but it is good. It is always good practice to go with the some of the oldest version. And how to install the oldest version? So if you go down, so here you can see that previous versions are there, 10.13 and 9, and okay, so you can go and you can download the versions that you want. Okay, so from this site you will be able to download the Python. Once the installation is done, now it's time to execute the Python code. But before that, how to write the Python code? Okay, obviously we are going to learn in this series how to write the Python code, but before that we should know where to write. So for that purpose, you need to install the any kind of text editor where you will be able to write the code. Okay, so in this case, okay, I have something called Sublime or VS Code, but these are the IDEs, integrated development environments. That is nothing but IDE. So IDE is something like integrated development environment. Okay, so you can use PyCharm also. That is what the IDE, Python IDE. Then if you want to use the Notepad, that is also fine. Then Sublime Text Editor, VS Codes, Jupyter Notebook, okay, Notepad, and then Visual Studio Editor is there. So these kinds of IDEs you can use to execute your, you can use any kind of text editor. Okay, so let's see how to start. I am going to use this Sublime. Okay, if you go to the Google and search for the Sublime Text, you will be able to install this. Okay, after the installation, what you need to do, how to write the Python code. So you will not be able to write the Python code directly here. You can write, but that is not, when Python is not going to understand how to execute until and unless you save the file in the extension of .py. So I'm going to save this file. Okay, if I come to the download, okay, and here I'm going to create the file. Okay, this is what not of our use, so I am going to create the file in case of here today. So I will say test.py. Okay, this is what my file name. If I hit the enter button, until and unless you specify the .py extension, your system will not be able to understand this is a Python file. So you need to always specify .py. After the file name, you have to say .py. The way we do, or we specify the extension for the images, we specify the extension for the CSV files, Excel files. Okay, similarly, you have to specify the extension for Python files so that system can understand this is a Python file. So what to use to execute this file, whatever the code you have written in the that file. So how system will be able to understand with the help of this .py. So it will call the Python compiler. Okay, so very simple code I'm going to write. I'm going to say print. Okay, so Python has print function to print something on command prompt. Okay, so here I'm going to say hello. Okay, hello learner. Okay, this is what I written. I saved this. Now it's time to execute. Okay, if you are using the Sublime text, what you can do, you can go to the tools and there is something called build, or if you can go and you can use the shortcut called Control B. If I click on this, it will be able to, meaning this has configured one terminal where you will be able to see the output directly. You do not need to go and use the command prompt, but yes, there is a way to execute that. Okay, let's see how to execute that. Okay, so let's say you are not using the command prompt. How to execute the Python code? If you go to this download folder, there is a file, the test.py file. Just click on the folder path. Select the entire folder path and type the cmd and hit the enter button. It will open the command prompt for that folder. And now, if you want to execute the Python code, you have to say py. Py stands for Python, or you can completely write Python. But py is shortcut. The system will be able to understand py stands for Python. Okay. Then here you have to say file name as a test.py. Okay, this is the syntax. This is the way you can execute, but make sure that you are opening a console. You are opening command prompt for the same folder. How to open for this folder? Open the folder where your file is saved. Go to the folder path and type cmd and hit the enter button. You will see something like this. Okay, and now here if you just hit the enter, you will see, or it will execute the Python code, whatever the code you have written, and you will see the output. If you print, that function's output will be printed here. If you do not print, nothing will be shown on this command prompt. But yes, still the execution can be done from this. It's not like that you are printing then and then only you have to use this. No. Whenever you have to run the program, you can use the command prompt the way we have used here. Specify py space file name with extension. Or if you don't want to go for command prompt, you can use the Sublime also. Okay, so this is about the Python installation and then writing the code, how to start the code writing, and how to start the execution, how to execute the Python code. Now, what are the various applications of Python where it is useful? So if I say web development, so Python has framework called Django, Flask, Fast API. So these frameworks are used, these frameworks are written in the Python code, and they help us to build or speed up the web development. So that's why we use the framework. So you will come to know day by day as we progresses with the programming, you will come to know about the framework and libraries and all. Okay. Then in case of data analysis and visualizations, Python has libraries called pandas, numpy, matplotlib, plotly, seaborn, even. These are the few examples. There are many. Okay, to perform the analysis and visualizations. Even Python is also used in machine learning and intelligence. For that, there is scikit-learn library, TensorFlow, Keras, OpenCV. These are the libraries used in data science. If you want to automate your regular task, if you are doing the same thing, same task again and again, okay, it may be a daily, it may be a period basis. After you, every 3 or 4 hours of time, you have to run something, you have to do something. So that kind of task, repetitive task, it can be a file operation, it can be a data extraction, it can be a system administration. Everything can be automated with the help of Python. So you can write script once and let's do your job by Python. So that kind of things you can do. That's what your automation and scripting. Then let's say game developments. If you want to develop the game, Python has library called Pygame. So you will be able to develop the 2D games with this library. Then web scraping and crawling. If you your data is sitting on the website, like we use the social applications like Facebook and LinkedIn. And if you want to scrap the data, if you want to fetch the data from that, so how to, right? So for that purpose, even Python supports. So there is library called Beautiful Soup, Scrappy. So these libraries we can use to scrap the data from various applications or from various websites. Then it is used in the big data engineering, also data engineering, and ETL. ETL stands for extract, load, and transform. Okay, these are the three words, ETL. That is what something Apache Spark, where Python is used. In case of cybersecurity, even Python is used. So these are the few examples where the Python is mostly used, but yes, there are many applications in the market. Now it's time to see how to learn the programming. Okay, this is not about the only Python and all, but if you want to learn any of the programming language, what you should know or how you should start. So first you need to you need to go through the installation and learn how to execute the program of that specific programming. Then you first should start with the variables. Once you get familiar with the variables, so what type of data that programming language support and how to change the data. Typecasting is nothing but changing the data type. Okay, so if your data is in text format, you can change that data, you can change that into the numbers. If the data is numerical text, okay, then obviously once you get familiar with the data types, you should know what are the various operators are there in the programming to perform the operations on data. Until and unless we do not know the operators, how we go and perform the operations, even you will not be able to perform the summation also. If you don't know operators, how operators works, so we should know what and all various types of operators in that programming and how they are going to work. Then commenting out the codes to improve the code readability and testing purpose. Comments are very helpful, so you should know how to comment the code. Once you get familiar with these many things, you can start with the conditional statement like if else and switch statements. Okay, even if else, then there are more nested if else, or I can say else if kind of statements are there. Various categorizations are happens in the terms of conditional statements, so you can go for that. That is fine. Then loops, obviously, once you get familiar with the conditional statement, then you can go for the loop. If you want to execute the same program again and again, okay, for any reason, there may be a situations, okay, to perform this. So in that situation, we need a loop. So loops are again very much important to build any kind of logic on the data. You must have very good hands on loops and conditional statement and operators. Then and then only you are able to do the anything with the help of programming. Obviously, once you get the familiar of this, in case of Python, you should know the collections in Python. So variable is used to store the single value. If you want to store the multiple values, and for values of, let's say, a key and value pair. So that kind of values are stored in the one of the collection. So there are four main types of collections, let's say list, tuple, set, and dict. Even string is one of the collection of characters. So I consider that as a string. Okay, but that is a separate topic. So once you get familiar with what is list, what is tuple, what is set, what is dictionary in Python, you can go for the string. And this is what about the basics of Python. Once you have a good hands, you can go for the functions, parameterized function, lambda functions, non-parameterized functions, functions with the return keyword. What is the meaning of that? You should know these things. Okay. Then types of arguments. Whenever you create the parameter, obviously we pass the data to the functions. The way you, if you are familiar with the Excel also, so we pass the data, we pass the some arguments to the functions before calling the functions. Let's say you have to perform the summations also in case of Excel. So you are going to pass the number to that sum function, right? That is what the function. There we refer as a formula, but that is a function. Then object-oriented programming. If you want to go with the web development, software development, application developments, so you are must be familiar with the object-oriented programming. Then there is something called exception handling. So you can go for the exception handling. Once you get familiar with the object-oriented, exception is there that if you get the any type of error in your code while running the code, how to handle that situations, you can tell to the Python with the help of exception handling. Then there is something called threading. Then map, reduce, filter methods are there. Then regular expressions. Then if you want to log and debug the process and even errors, okay, so logging and debugging is there. And at last, you should know how to connect with the database using Python. Once you will be able to do the connection, you will be able to do the any kind of operations, because for that purpose, to perform the operations on data, we have to go through all these things. Okay? And this is the way, and this is the process. You should follow this process to learn the programming. And at last, I hope you like the content of this video. Thank you so much for watching the video. Have a nice day.